pulsate.
Yeah. Welcome back to Wook Plus.
News.
Fine Sunday morning. I'm Weekend Wook. I'm joined by Kevin T. It's nice, man. A nice Sunday morning after a run. These are the days. I don't know, like back in the day, you go on a, not even back in the day. I mean, even recently, you go out on a little mini tour, a little run, then you grab breakfast on Sunday morning. You have your cup of coffee. You have that day, or one day, the next day you reminisce with your friends.
Gallon of water.
5 gallons of water. Hey, what the hell? No, yeah, I do. The afterglow, right? The next morning where you're like, man, that was some good shit.
Right. Well, last night was kind of like if you have one of those long weekends with your partner, and like by the fourth night, you're like, yeah, this is still great, but I'm running out of gas a little bit.
One of us is divorced. Cat's threshold is 4 nights. He's like, oh, good. He's like, what, are you gonna move in?
Oh man.
Yeah, I don't even think at this point I'm saying one of. I think after careful contemplation, it is absolutely the best Mexico run for the band of PHiSH.
Contemplating the past 6 hours.
I have been, man. I did some heavy research and listening, and that's my conclusion. That's my groundbreaking conclusion.
That's where you landed.
That was some good PHiSH. Yeah, I listened to Chalk Dust and then Wave of Hope last night, like back into each other, and it's so great the way that the nights happened, because when Wave of Hope happened, I was like, this is fucking phenomenal. This is like the best PHiSH I've heard in a while. But when you listen to them back to back, the Chalk Dust is on a different level of a jam. Like it's not even close. It's just it's a whole elevated thing they had going on. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Wave of Hope is phenomenal, but I think that Chalk Dust is probably going to go down as one of the better jams of modern PHiSH history.
Mm-hmm. Maybe the best of all time.
Could be. I mean, I'm not here to say that, but it certainly could be.
I mean, some of the stuff that we hold up as being, like the Runaway Jim, the 50 whatever plus minute Runaway Jim, a lot of that is them just searching, and it's tedious. It isn't balls to the wall, straight on through for 39 minutes,
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And I was thinking about that on the re-listen. And so this is maybe a weird mental trick. I don't know if this is the reality or if it's like the hindsight's 2020 thing. But when I was re-listening to it, you could hear even before they get into the jam that it was special, right? Like there was an extra tingliness to it. There was an extra punch to the bass. There was an extra little notes to Trey's playing. PHiSH had a little extra get up and a little extra drive in his groove. The whole band was, and I Paige too, like I don't want to forget him, but like the whole band, they were giving it their all from the first note. It's not like they were playing, like mailing in Chalk Dust and then decided they were going to have a monster jam. They went into it loving what they were doing and like enjoying it. Like almost it sounded like they were playing it for the first time, right? We listen to all those like 90, 91 shows on Wook Club, and you're like, man, it sounds like they're playing this, like they're just getting it. And it's because they are, right? Well, that's what this one's kind of sounded like. They were just like, fuck it, like we're in it, we're gonna play it. And I forget what you said. Oh, right. But some of the other really long jams, I don't know if they had that energy, right? Like they kind of just like explore and find it. This was right from the get-go is ready to go.
Yeah, like the Free from whenever it was, 95 or 97 at US Air, that's like 40 minutes. A good 11, 12 minutes of that is Trey over on the drum kit. And it's just, they're just trying to figure out how to break free of Type 1 to create the Type 2 at that moment. This one, they embodied some of 2.0,
big 2.0 opiate jam, like patient, just riding it.
But there was a lot of that even before. Like, I mean, if you go back to night 1, you could start seeing that in like that Axela and stuff. There was a lot of that night 1 or that 2.0 breakdown jammy sort of thing in some of these jams. That wait.
Axela was night 2 though. You're forgetting
night
about
2.
Set show. Although the Axela was super fucking cool to end that set.
Right. in that set in that first night of the show. Right. I mean, first night as far as the first night of sets, like real shows. Like the first night was. It's
I
like,
think you could think of Wednesday as a sound check or like a warm up.
Yeah,
I don't think that's wrong to do because I think that was their attitude too. And if that's the case, it was actually really fucking good for what it was. It's like a welcome party.
Lots of I tell you what, the first 2 nights I feel like, and with Fast, I guess 3 out of the 4 nights they nailed it with the slow song or the cool down song in the first set. But last night we got the Mercy, and we were poo-pooing on it last night. Actually, I think we skipped it, but think about it. I mean, Trey loves his new songs, and he was so good to not do all of them. And then last night we got quite a few. We got the Life Beyond a Dream, we got the More, we got the Mercy, and it like someone said last night, it was his prize for being so kind.
Right, he earned that. I will actually. You bring up a point though. I think some of the new songs were unsung heroes because you can't just have all monster jams, right? You need some other things, and I think that Life Saving Gun in the actual first night was what really saved that night. I think the Oblivion out of the Wave of Hope, even though what the Oblivion itself wasn't a monster Oblivion, it worked really well between big jams and kept the vibe. I don't even want to say the energy, but like the whole vibe of that set, it kept it up because there's been shows where they have a monster jam and then it's the fourth quarter problem, right? Where they've just completely fuck it up. Like, so some of these new songs have actually come in kind of like as good closers. That said, Evolve, Ether Edge, Mercy. Oh, for me, I know T's not T likes them, but they're not all up there for me. But there's something for everybody, I guess.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. I mean, I think it's an acquired taste, and I think it's just like all fish. You like some of it, you don't like, I mean, there's people that love Drift. Kevin and I cannot stand that song. So, I mean, there's just things, I don't mind liking Ether Edge and Evolve when other people don't like it. It's fine. It's not their cup of tea. I know the reasons I like it. Like I said, it makes me smile, puts me in a good mood. You can't do anything about that, right? Like that's just the job of music. Some songs hit you and you feel all right. Some songs don't. And
well, I would even go as far as to say within myself, I change. Like, I bet if you go through the history of the channel, and I'm not recommending anybody do this because our early shit was cringe as hell. But like, if you went through the history of this channel, there's times where I'm like dogging a song that now I probably would praise, and vice versa, right? Because like your situation change, your mind, your mental state, like your taste, and the band changes what they do with the songs. So I by no means am trying to be like oh, I'm never gonna like Evolve, right? And if I do, you could say like I'm flip flopping or whatever. I don't give a shit. But like it's at this point right now, for whatever reason, it's not clicking with me. But I'm 100% open to it. I actually hope, right? The intent is that you love everything because that's when you have the most fun. Like you don't want to not like things. Like I'm not excited that there's songs that I'm like, oh fuck, we gotta get through this.
And I don't even think if you go back to the beginning of the channel, you can just kind of chart that in your history of PHiSH personally, because there's songs. I mean, like Susie, I was so over Susie 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and now I don't mind. Like now I wouldn't mind getting one.
I would say you like Susie quite a bit.
And now she's back in my good graces, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I could do that. So it's kind of those ebb and flows of things. And I mean, who knows? Maybe one day Kevin will be like, sure do miss Drift. Like we haven't had one in like 4 years. It'd be nice if they busted that out. I can't imagine I'd ever say that, but you never know.
Well, and also placement. I wanted to live in that chalk dust. I think any song they did afterwards, I would have been like, why'd you do that song? Because I really wanted to go back 10 minutes when they started playing Beneath the Sea of Stars and get back, So maybe that's part of it too. That the
I think Beneath the Sea of Stars was probably the best choice for that reason. Like if you, Mr. Went, aren't gonna like anything they place there, I think that as like a really beautiful, like chill sway song is the best choice they could go with.
And the solo in it, when they got to the instrumental part after the lyric, was reminiscent a little bit of the chalk dust. So I felt, okay, I made it through the 4 minutes. Like I was saying about Ruby Waves, you just have to have a zen about it. Let me make it through the 5 minutes, and then hopefully we'll get some interesting stuff going on.
This was also really special.
Yeah.
What was it? Lily? Mangoes for, I think it was Lily.
Ellie.
Ellie.
And I think it hit a lot of people though, because a lot of social media the next day and even throughout the whole weekend was comments about that. So I think it was a really, it hit a lot of people emotionally, and like the story was, great.
Benji did not agree. You're right, SC.
Well, it wasn't that he didn't agree. He just didn't want it to turn into a thing, right? He's like, you just don't want everybody being like, dedicate this for this, and I want to hear this. It's kind of like what we said about Trey grabbing the thing from the guy or whatever at the end of the one show. You're like, you're gonna open up a door of people always wanting to give you shit now,
Yeah, I listen, I'm not gonna try to defend or whatever, Benji, but I felt like it was a take he established after the bug thing. The girl that was like, "Hey, sing," and it probably resonated, and like it got ingrained as a take for him then, and he just absentmindedly carried the take over to this, not really appreciating
the gravity of it.
like
the gravitas of the situation.
Yes.
I don't know. I haven't talked to him about it. I haven't talked to him since, but anyway, besides what Benji thought, I thought that was a stellar move by the band.
Didn't he take something from someone in the audience?
That's what I said the next night, but that was the next night. Like he, did that, and
yeah. I've been thinking about it. I don't know her or the family or anything, but like just that's such a universal like thing that you can relate to. It's been like stuck in my head every once in a while. I just keep going back to it. It's super emotional, but solid move by Trey.
How can you I don't have a problem with doing that stuff myself, even if it is somebody gets married.
I think the bigger problem I have is the stories of people who run into Trey or meet Trey and then request a song.
Contacted outline.
Like, right? You're like, you get this one chance to do this, and that's what you're requesting. Like, oh man, you know what I really like is if you play a Shade again. Like, you haven't played them well. Like, what? No. Like, hey Trey, have you ever thought about doing like making something creative? Like, give him a one-off. Like, maybe you should. Have you ever thought about doing a Susie Greenberg reprise? Something like that. That it'd be like, no, I haven't. That's a good idea. Like, we should try something new and different out of the box.
If I met Trey, I would throw at him that the tab with the horns needs to do Beginnings by Chicago. I think it would fit perfectly with Trey's mindset with the love and light. And
I don't think I would suggest or recommend anything. That's such an insulting thing. It's like, hey, I'm a schlup that does a YouTube channel, and you're a billionaire, interested composer that fucking created PHiSH.
Playing this song a little bit better, or playing this one they haven't played in a while. Like, why don't you play LaGrange anymore, man?
Yeah, I think maybe ask him some mundane question, like try to understand, you know what I mean? Like just him, I don't know. You guys know Christina met him, they talked for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And like he was fully engaged in Sue too, like and my daughter. And I was obviously not there, and it's fucking horrible, and I still hold it. But they talked for like 20 minutes and had this engaging conversation. Not once did they talk about PHiSH or Wook Plus or anything. Like they just talked about the orchestra in New York and like human shit, and it worked out perfectly. Oh, Brian's here. Brian, I promised not to put you in timeout this morning. I apologize. That was a mistake.
All right, so if we were gonna tier these shows, I think two of them are obvious, and the question is night 2 or night 3, which one is the top S?
Yeah. Do you want to go through 2 and 3, the highlights, just to remind everybody? Or we could go through all of them and then tier them.
Well, I feel like night 2, wasn't that the night that Axela and then a song I heard the ocean sing?
And into the monster wave, the monster wave
I think the song before Axela, Through Wave of Hope, was probably the best straight piece of music the whole time.
Right, Birds of a Feather, which was an absolute monster jam, and the first highlight of the run, like the first real highlight. Like we had
turn. That's when they
highlights
turned
beforehand, but
that's when the turn was, when Trey was like, "All right, now it's second set time." We played a whole in the first night of first set tunes. Let's,
I'm with Jeff here too. Everybody starts at the Birds, but the gumbo is fucking wonderful. It was small, but like we said that night, fucking wonderful jam.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think gumbo was what really started, was where the kickoff kind of began.
Yes, I like that too. I like putting that narrative out there. Gumbo kicking it off. We need more gumbos.
There was a little extra pepper in the gumbo. I'll give you that.
Yeah, it was. It was good to hear.
This second night, so good for so long. Basically, gumbo all the way through to tube. At the end, there was no slouch. Even the gym part of tube, which was a little bit odd, was still fucking cool. Like, it was interesting.
Well, I
The
liked it
next
because they
night,
were pushing. They were, this is not your normal thing. All right, let's let's go off the off the tracks here a little bit.
right? The next night had the best jam, I think, undoubtedly with Chalk Dust. But I think the first set was a bit weaker, right? With the whole Evolve Mole 46A Kill Devil Falls. I mean, by Kill Devil Falls, it locked in, but it was just compared to the night before, not as consistent as the gumbo on. And I think the Beneath the Sea of Stars number line was probably a little bit of a dip. So I think peak wise, 3 is probably the best, but like on average and consistency, I'd probably give it to 2. So how do you decide that? I don't know.
I probably am going to have to give it to 3 solely on the Chalk Dust, that it was
that good that
it was,
despite
right.
everything else, it carries it.
If there's
I think
anything
you
I'm
might
going
be
to go
right.
back and listen to, if I'm going to make a 90-minute tape of the whole Mexico run, one side of it's going to be Chalk Dust. And then the other side is probably going to be Song I Heard the Ocean Sing, Wave of Hope.
I don't know. I mean, that second set on night 2, Tweezer Tube, Runaway Jim Tube was pretty awesome. And then
the Wave of Hope and the Oblivion was awesome too.
Right. Well,
And the
that's what
song I
I'm
Heard
saying.
the
I'm
Ocean Sing was
saying
awesome.
once
The
you
whole
got
set
through
was
that,
awesome.
like the backups to the awesome parts of, like, I'm looking at what else was around those 2 awesome songs.
Oh,
right.
Right.
What else was around that to do that? Like that first tube on, I mean, the first set on night 2, to Kev's point, you got to wait until you get to that Gumbo, My Soul, Birds of a Feather, Axela run to really kick it off. But then from there on,
Then it doesn't look back.
Right. The whole show is like, oh, wow. Night 3, you're looking at it and you're kind of into it right away on that first set. Like, I think that first set is built better to me personally. And then the second set, looking at it, I'm not as big a fan of Beneath the Sea of Stars, Down Lumberline. That Hood was fantastic, but you have those 2 songs in between it.
Fourth quarter thing.
Right.
It's
a little bit. Thank God they came out with Hood. It was a bad fourth quarter with a strong 2-minute drill. Right.
I almost put 2 ahead of 3 based on the whole show around it, like what it is. Like, you take that Chalk Dust out, or you even shorten that Chalk Dust down and put another song in there, you're probably still saying 2 is probably the more rounded out night or the better night. I don't know. I don't want to say better, just.
Well, what one you like better?
Yeah, I think I'm going 2. Maybe like 2 as 1, and then night 3 as 1A, because it's really hard to separate that down. Yeah. So
what's your top, Tim?
I think I'm gonna go with 2. I think Chalk Dust is
You're an island again, Kev.
I think Chalk Dust is the king. But again, Oblivion, Tweezer, that choice and the execution coming out of those first 2 jams.
I forgot about that.
That gave it the, like, your mind is already melted, and then you're just like the sequential climaxes, right? You're just like, fuck, we're still going. Fuck, we're still going. Fuck, we're still going, right? The Chalk Dust was a better jam, but then you got like okay, now we're just gonna eat a sandwich, smoke a cigarette, and fall asleep with Beneath the Sea of Stars, whereas fucking night 2 was just over and over. So,
well, I think Kev just kind of summed it up right there with, oh yeah, Tweezer. I forgot about Tweezer. Like, when you're forgetting about Tweezer in a run of shows, that's how good the songs of other songs were, or other, you know what I mean? Because usually you're like, man, that Tweezer jam, regardless, you're always like, that Tweezer jam was pretty sweet, and you're always in the top 3 of talking about that song inside of a show or inside of a run. And here we're like, oh yeah, they did play Tweezer and a reprise that kind of are just sort of a wash, like what? So that's how good it was, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we put every Mexico, show, like all the PHiSH Mexico shows up to each other, these 2 out of all the years would probably be 1 and 2 in whatever order, which is crazy to get them in the same year like that. Even the like parts that we're not talking about, like that My Soul from Thursday night was fucking fun.
Awesome.
The encore with reprise was fun.
What
the next night was really fun.
what do you, and even for the chat, what do you guys remember most from other shows? Like other than this run, what would be standout highlights for you from the Mexico shows? Like I
Spock's
can't really,
brain. Wasn't there a bust out of Spock's brain one year? I thought was really fucking neat.
The
villain.
Wolfman's maybe last year or the year before was one of my Jam of the Year nominees.
Yeah, but it's third, and we'll see what happens this year. But that's always like when people bring it up, you're like, oh yeah, that was good. But like, it's never like the one that everybody's talking about.
Top of mind, right?
I remember when you brought it up on the Jam of the Year, I didn't disagree with you. I was like, oh yeah, it was good, but like it was completely out of my mind. I feel like these two jams, this Wave of Hope and Chalk Dust, are going to be front of mind through the rest of the year. Like these are going to be the measuring stick that everything else gets measured against the rest of the year.
Well, and I think the measuring stick of Mexico going forward, even because now there's a lot to live up to next year, because you're obviously going to be comparing this year to that going forward. You know, like I feel like every other year you come into it just sort of like,
it's a nice vacation with some good music.
Vacation shows, you don't expect much. And even this year coming into it, I know we on social media with some of our Wook adjacent folks were like, I'm kind of worried about Mexico. Like, should I be worried after Gamehenge? Should I still be wanting to? And you're like, yeah, I mean, the worst case scenario, you're just going to be on a beach in Mexico listening to your favorite band. Best case scenario, you get these incredible songs that you got. So
I don't feel like there was the anticipation for Mexico this year either, because the Spear had been put on the calendar and people were looking past Mexico.
And that always kind of happens though, because I swear we forget to put Mexico in a lot of our year-round recaps. We're always like starting with spring tour or something. You're like, oh yeah, Mexico was before that. And this year it really gave it a more of a jumping off point. And we can answer this one, Tim. I like how SC comes to us. SC's on the T and Tim Legion.
Yeah, we have to have our own Legion. We got to join forces. Come back.
Right. Is a 30-minute jam going to become the new thing every couple nights?
We just brought up a question.
We'll answer that.
I was like, fuck that. It doesn't involve me. I'm not doing it.
I'm sorry, I read it wrong. I didn't realize it was a question. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I would say yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And I mean, by better, you're not saying too much better, just a little bit stronger songs in there. Or, I mean, I hate to say this, songs I like maybe more to go in there, but yeah.
I love
Landfill. They had a 3-piece, and I'm going to leave Evolve alone, right? Because that's a taste thing, but I think it was fine and the placement was good. But the 3-piece in the first set on Friday of Mull, 46 Days, Kill Devil Falls, any one of those three would have worked, but only in itself. I think putting the three of them together was a mistake. So if they had extended Mull and gave a more stretched out version and skipped 46 Days, or vice versa, done with 46 Days or done with Kill Devil Falls, I think it would have been a perfect set. I think trying to squeeze the three of them in, and the reason they did that, so it's not like they made that choice and that's why it's bad. That was a symptom of why it didn't work, was because the jams weren't locking in and they weren't forcing it, to their credit. But you could tell when you see a set list like that, when they're playing a lot of the same songs back to back to back without extending them, that means, at least in my observation opinion, that they're not finding it and they're trying a different outlet. They're taking a different path to find it. So it's more of like a symptom of it. So yeah, I think if that portion of the set, leave the Set Your Soul Free, leave the Ghost, Fast Enough, Evolve, and even closing with Sigma, which I think is a weak ass closer, but even that is fine. I think in the middle, if they had tweaked that, 3 would have been an all-time show.
Right. Yeah, and if you would have gotten your normal kind of 46 Days jam in there or something that kind of took it in that first set type thing, totally agree. Totally agree.
Or the same thing with Kill Devil Falls, like what we usually get with that.
Right.
It's odd. Both those jobs are usually reliable.
Yeah.
The Kill Devil Falls, they locked in onto something.
They found it in that.
It was too late in the set, it felt like.
It kind of came too late, which was, it is what it is. But yeah, that was sort of the only sort of bump in the road as far as like the sets went, because they just couldn't find it, right? Like they just couldn't find where to land in that middle section, which kind of happens a lot. I don't want to say a lot, but kind of happen. Like we kind of have that problem sometimes when we talk about, especially in the first sets, the opener, the second song, sometimes the third song, and then you kind of get in this like meshy area of like, I'm not quite sure what they're doing there, and then they come out of it with like the last song or 2 songs to kind of like, and then we get those songs where we're like, was this a strong enough song to close the set? Did this make up for the gap or like kind of that middleness that was a little
You
bit
had
flubbier.
to done an antelope instead of a Sigma Oasis. It
Where
might
the
have
fuck
turned
is
the whole thing
Antelope?
around.
Yeah,
No.
that would have made this set a lot better. I kind of just had this thought as you were talking to that's gonna fuck up our whole thing of like analyzing these shows and the way we go about it. But I don't know that you would have had the chalk dust in the second set if they didn't go through that process of the first set. And I feel like it's hard to nitpick and pull these shows apart because it's not like they're athletes swinging at fastballs, right? Like it's a very creative, organic process. This isn't a robotic thing. So whatever the process is, even if the steps along the way don't resonate and aren't perfect, if the final result is that chalk dust jam,
Right.
I kind of don't want to go back and touch anything because I feel like if they didn't go through that process, they wouldn't have gotten. They needed to explore those things. They needed to try and swing and miss to finally land on something that was like. I feel like that's almost like a once in a lifetime or like a dozen in a lifetime type of jams. Like we're kind of talking about it lightly, right? But you name the jams that like from their history, they're not that many, right? Like maybe what, a dozen, 2 dozen that are like, and like we're in the afterglow of that moment in history. So
You got to
I
put
don't
it up
know.
like you got to put it up against the Soul Planet from out Shoreline or
Yeah.
something like that.
I gotta
And
revisit that one. I can't remember it at all.
but that's why you can't remember it. It was long, and it had a 24-hour cycle. This chalk dust, people will be talking about a month from now still.
Right. Like I can remember the Tahoe Tweezer jam like years later. I could still hear the sections of it. I can remember the Ruby Waves, the Alpine Ruby Waves. You know, I can hear, a bunch of jams, not a ton, maybe like, half a dozen. I think this chalk dust is probably going to be in that category.
Well, yeah, and after listening to it a couple times yesterday, Kev, yes, it was in my head last night, like that, especially the end where he's doing the, and I was like, why do I where? And you keep that. I'm like, what is that song? You're like, oh right, it's the jam inside of Jog. Like that's what's stuck in my head. But yes, and it was so good that I even texted Skoy the next day and was like, dude,
check it out.
Go listen to this chalk dust. And it's so funny. His response to me was the fact that you're actually texting me and telling me to do this. He's like, I will go listen to it. He's like, probably won't be till tomorrow, but I was like, you need, like, that's how special it was, right? Like you want to share it with people and be like, go listen to this and let me know your opinions. Like I want to know what you think of it and you need to listen to this. So yeah, I think it'll be around for a while and talked about for a while. And I'm interested to see. Yeah, and I'm interested to see, Tim, as you were mentioning before, where this ends up by the time we get to Monday Green after whatever tour we get and stuff, and what we're still talking about it then, and then even on the year wrap-up show, like where we're at when we're talking about like all the way back to the beginning of the year when we had that chalk dust. Yeah, who would have thought that it led to these other 2 45-minute jams, or that was the peak, or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see where that ends up in just the history of this year.
I wonder what the implications of this, if at all, this run and these monster jams so early on are going to have for the rest of the year. Like, this is all right. Actually, I have a thought on this. But Kevin, you want to, because you and I we were about to jump into this conversation right before we went live, and
well, we'll get to Gamehenge in a minute. I was saying, is it sustainable? Okay, because it's not like they did the chalk dust only. The night before they did a 35-minute jam. Are we going to every couple shows beginning a 30-minute jam this year? Is that going to be the new standard? We're pushing it. When we push it, we're pushing it to 30 minutes now, not 20.
Right.
And it was 15 at one time,
I don't know if it's going to be 30, but I think it's going to be a monster big jam year. And I think 4.0 has been a very interesting phase because we had, 21, where they had like, 20, 25, 20 plus minute jams when they were doing that fundraising thing. And it felt like every show just had a monster jam. And then that was like, oh, this is the new PHiSH. And then last year, how many shows did we get there where there's like 12-minute jams, 11-minute jams, and there was nothing that was over? So I think maybe not 30 minutes, right, over time, but I think this is going to be more akin to 21, where that's what they're feeling, that's what they're vibing. We're just going to have monster jams most shows. I would not be shocked if we break the gym record this year. either at Monday Green or probably not the Sphere, but
At
like
Monday Green, definitely
probably at
at
Monday Green
They have 10 sets.
or
Yeah,
or
and
the
I think
Midwest
that's what I was
show
thinking
right
too.
before Monday Green that like nobody goes to. You know, they're like in St. Louis or something, and they do you know, a 70-minute something, a 70-minute Seven
A
Below or
whole set
something.
is one song. They finally do the one set song.
Yeah.
One song set.
Like that would not shock me at all. That is not out of the discussion, I think.
Yeah. I think
All
it's interesting though to see some of the opinions here in the chat of like thinking, because I know Kev thinks very much the opposite of this as far as like the Sphere goes, as far as the improv and the jams go. Like he thinks it's going to be much more structured and scripted and in line. Whereas I don't know, this is kind of a good point too, because if you have the graphics and the running things and it doesn't matter about what they're playing and they do improvise for 20 minutes and all you have to do is just let it keep going, I think you
generic
can do that.
graphics based
So-
more than
Yeah.
song specific graphics. Like
so
I think
possibly there is more. There isn't, because I mean, thinking about that, how we always say, "Oh, they're not going to do this," or "Oh, they are going to do this." They do the exact opposite. So if you're
That's
thinking
why we
you're gonna
say
go
it.
right, so you think, "Oh, we're going to go in the Sphere," and it's going to be like blah, and all of a sudden you go to the Sphere and it's like, do your one song sets or something, right? And you're just like, "Holy shit, this is not at all what I thought they were going to do here." So you never know. But I think those are
That's why
interesting points.
Kev and I always disagree with each other. So one of us is
One of us is
guaranteed
right.
But your logic, though, Kev, for the Sphere, I don't think is 100% sound because, like, I feel like, sure, you two needed to be structured and probably Dead & Co needs to be structured, but I could 100% see PHiSH putting up the, like, Maze Runner screensaver from, like, Windows 95 or something, or, like, the Flying Through Space and doing a 25-minute 2001 with just stars flying by. And not only do I see them doing
flying
it,
toasters in the
I
background.
think Wooks would fucking love it. Right? Like, I don't think anyone would complain if they just had a repeating, vamping, crazy visual for a 25, 30, 40-minute jam. Like, I think everybody across the board would love that.
Totally.
Jerry Garcia had something to do with them getting that picture to this airplane for that album cover. It had something to do with Garcia. The Flying Toasters.
Can I address this real quick?
Yeah.
You in my opinion, and from what I've seen in interviews, you absolutely 100% practice improv, right?
Yeah.
Like the language of it, the ability, the techniques, your tools, how to navigate certain situations. And I think that's what set PHiSH apart early on, was they actually practiced jamming and practiced not following structure. And I'd have all those exercises. Sorry. I'm leading into it. He's like, that's not what I meant. I'm like, hey, no, it's cool. Sorry, Ed. You're awesome.
For a specific song. Oh, yeah. I mean, yes and no, because I can actually in the Taper's Choice interview that we did one time, they talked about that and how when they practice, if they fall into a really good jam or find a jam or think they're going into the jam, sometimes they'll stop and be like, oh, wait, let's not go there. Let's save that for when we're playing. We know how to get there now. Let's not do that now because we don't want to ruin what could be a spontaneous moment when we get there. But knowing how to get there is what they kind of practice. And then sure, sometimes they will jam it out and have those fun things and be like, we can't do this. But they were saying that like they like to save it and know where they can get in and out of it and be like, okay, we'll save the jam for when we're playing and not necessarily rehearse it right now or practice it. So yeah,
I call those on ramps, like in my and amateur bullshit, but like we'll stumble on an on ramp where the rhythmic modulation or the chord progression breaks us off of something that's written into something that's improvised, and I think that on ramp is something that you could practice or have. But what happens once you're or launch pad or that on ramp, once you get to that point, then it's fair game. But there's definitely those transitions that are part of your rehearsed or practiced.
It's scripted.
Save it for the podcast. I don't know. I'm reading chat. I shouldn't be reading chat. Okay. But I thought we answered this. Did we not? I answered this in my mind and then we moved on, I guess.
Yeah, no, we didn't answer it. What you got?
About no Gamehenge?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a statement, but I don't think it's nothing.
I think it's a
call. Leave it up. Leave it up. We're still talking about it. Why'd you take it off? Come on, man.
I'm sorry.
You're like ADD with the chat today. No, listen, like I agree. It's not, regardless, it's in slow rotation, so they definitely would have played it. I think with the number of songs, they probably would have had one or two show up in rotation. So there's definitely a mental thing where like, hey, we don't want to bust that out yet. Let that breathe. But I don't think it was a monster, like not monster. I don't think it was like a big statement like, oh, we're saving it for anything or anything. I think it was just like, hey, we did that. Let's go on and do something else right now. I think by summer tour or by the Sphere, you're gonna have Gamehenge back in rotation.
I think there was a backroom deal with
possibly,
Mike.
I know.
There was a backroom deal with Mike, right? Where Trey was like, "We'll do Gamehenge, but then we retire all of them. We'll never play any of those songs again,
ever." No, I think they'll be back. I think it was just one of those fishy decision type things of, hey, we just did all these. Let's leave that memory of those songs there for now. And like, what, you know what I mean? Let's not bust out a Lizards on the Beach now because we have this image of lizards dancing on the stage that will be with you for a while. So let's just wait on that until, you know what I mean? I think it was a conscious decision, but I wouldn't read a lot into it. I don't think those songs by any means are gone.
No, they're not gonna get rid of those songs.
No,
you fucking Lizards and Divided Sky and Melt
and Bag after that ridiculous Bag.
You're
still getting.
They're not getting rid of those songs.
Am I surprised they didn't play any of them? A little bit, but not really. Like, I mean, we did get the Possum, so
right.
You know,
I wonder how, if you looked at any 4 shows randomly since 3.01, how often a Gamehenge song doesn't appear in any 4 show stretch.
I mean, technically we got one with Possum, but even with that aside, I think it's probably not that uncommon. I don't know. It depends because like Lizards and like Mockingbird and Tila and like Forbins and all those are way spread out. Like once a year, if that.
Like all of those, you get so sparing, like really anyway, right? Like they're not regular rotation. Like Bag is something that you get.
Bag, Llama, Melt.
Punch you in the eye
more now.
Right, you're more likely to get a Punch You in the Eye or a Wilson, I think, than any of those songs.
Yeah, I think Bag is probably the highest rotation if I had to guess.
Really, even
or
above
Llama.
Wilson?
And I mean, we've gotten a lot of melts lately. I mean,
a lot of melts, a lot of memorable melts too, though.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. The April, whale show, the New Year's show, the Dick's melt, which was still one of my favorite melts. Like, there's some
every melt since that April show. I feel
Willie
like
agrees with me. That's what Willie thinks. He thinks I'm right, and the Legion of Kev is wrong.
Yeah, maybe that was why Trey brought this up in the Trey cinematic universe, was that he's putting things into that vault, and that's where all the Gamehenge things are now.
No, actually, the 100% the reason he brought that up is to make fun of conversations like the one we're having right now.
Right?
He probably overhears or gets asked questions like that, and they probably think it's funny as shit because it's probably very trivial for them. Like, oh, like I don't know, we just didn't play it, but people ask the assholes that meet them, they're like, hey, why didn't you play Bag in Mexico?
So what you're saying is we really need to put a push for A-Train to get him to play that again and be like, why don't you ever play A-Train anymore? When the fuck you bring back A-Train? Why don't you play A-Train? And then let him come out and be like, I know it's been 14,000 shows since we've done A-Train, so here it is.
I want them to do recorded sessions, studio sessions, because I would love to hear A-Train. I don't think, as we've talked about many times, that translates to the arenas and shit, but a barn session that like was webcast or live streamed, and they do like jazz standards and like early pieces and like an intimate kind of like the cue, but like even more intimate, like in the barn would have been.
Yeah, they could do.
I'd pay for that. I'd pay more for that than fucking. I don't know.
Right, yeah, I thought this too, Brian. I thought that was funny because then they do this at Charlotte, or wasn't it Charlotte where they did the reprise?
New Year's that year.
New Year's. Okay, yeah. So it's been around. So it's been out twice. It hadn't been 17 years. I think it's funny though. Sometimes I think Trey even forgets when the hell he played it last or whatever. So,
I heard a story once. Somebody asked him about the Possum. He had just played when he walked off stage, and he didn't even
remember that he did that.
Played Possum. He was like,
which is funny that he can't remember those things, but does remember what he played. Will never like play the song or like does have in his head where certain things are going to go, or like we can't repeat these, or like knows that what was played. You know what I mean? And then other times he's like, I don't know.
I think it's like when you're you ever like listening to something in the car or like you're on your commute, and then all of a sudden you're like there and you don't remember any of the drive, like it's just you're going through emotions.
Yeah,
zombie mode. You're in zombie mode.
But it's also like a flow state. Like I don't think. Yeah. improvises. I
Gross.
think you get in the flow state and you're not using your conscious brain, right? You're just in that mode.
That was what that 142 shows wasn't that big of a bust out long ago.
For
But
what?
it's still awesome to hear it.
Reprise?
Yeah.
Well, when they only
Yeah,
play
I think
like
he's
60
making
a
fun
year.
of shit like us.
Yeah,
not
right.
us specifically, but like these types of conversations. But you know
You
what,
know
Trey?
he
We're gonna do it
watches.
anyway because we're nerds and we fucking love it.
Trolling the
he
trolls.
watches, so
Yeah.
Watches.
I mean, PHiSH picks up on posts every once in a while. And
yeah.
like you see that like they're in like the views or the comments, not the comments, but like you see it and you're like, is that just their intern or like are they getting this? I know Tom constantly gets.
Oh yeah,
you know,
Tom's engaged.
he's engaged with all of this stuff.
Some
but
like Joel from Umphreys, Mark from Disco Biscuits, they're very engaged on Twitter.
specifically
is
with
great.
you because you're a networking fool.
Oh yeah.
This is how you end up with your legion.
Look at Brownie, man. Brownie is like a Twitter king. That guy, you know, so it's great. The engagement with fans, I think, is really cool on that respect from some of those.
I tell you what, Disco
people.
Biscuits is having a 1997 PHiSH year already. If
Yeah.
you
I
haven't checked them out.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you guys, I saw a request on one of our videos. They were saying like, hey, will you guys do biscuits? And I was like, I mean,
We
yeah,
could try
maybe
it.
it's not outside the realm of possibility.
You know, we could always do a Wook club with something like that.
No,
if we
but I
wanted
think
one.
they wanted to like,
Oh, an after show.
yeah, but are they streaming their shows?
If you have a Nug subscription,
I mean,
think,
I can.
which isn't that much. Yes,
I have one of those relationships with Nugs where it's like I
Mm-hmm.
constantly go in and out. Like I can't set it and forget it. Like a couple months will go by, I'll be like, all right, let me go check it out. I'll listen to it like every day for like 3 weeks, and then I'll cancel because I'll get angry at Brad. I'll be like, ah, fuck you.
Yeah, always. Yep, always.
But yeah, maybe I don't know. I think we could expand into some other bands. I feel like Mo's gonna have a big year too. They've been sounding great. I wouldn't mind doing that. Maybe we could divide and conquer.
I think this is a troll.
I bet that I bet if you did a Taper's Choice after show, Llama would do it.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're not touring this year though. They got all their side projects. Those other things like Vampire Weekend.
The
and
ones
Real
that pay the
Estate.
bills.
Yeah, to pay the bills shows that they got to do tour this year. So I don't know when we're gonna get another.
Won't they do
TC
Choice
show.
Fest? They got to do Choice Fest again.
This might be the deciding factor. A nice free
there you
Mixler
go.
stream. Yeah,
That's
well, you
awesome.
know what? Maybe on Wednesday on Live, we'll announce our summer plans, like the next tours and what shows we're gonna cover. Obviously, we're gonna do PHiSH and we'll do Dead and Co. We're doing Dead and Co. That's 24 of the same show, but
Right. I'm just wondering. I wonder two things about Dead and Co. Is it going to be streamed, and is it going to be the same 3 set list every weekend?
I think there's more of a chance for them to do it than to PHiSH to structure it. But
Yeah,
And then what would we do? I mean, we would do the first weekend the after shows, but then the next week it'd be like, well, let's compare this Jack Straw to the last Jack Straw.
Kev, we should absolutely do this show. I'd still like to
Oh,
try
yeah.
and get out there for that show, to be honest with you. But we should absolutely review that show when they
Yeah.
do it, because I'm really looking forward to that. I
The
think that's
eyes
gonna
is
be
going to be off the hook.
awesome. Just
you
awesome.
know what we could do too is each week we could set it up for either the members or the subs or something, like put a poll out and like let everybody decide what shows we cover, right? Give the options. Like obviously we're gonna do PHiSH, but like the other shows, it's like, you know, see what
There's a lot of Billy Strings fans out there too.
I don't
There's
feel
a lot of Billy
qualified
Strings
to
fans.
review Billy Strings though. I feel like that would
Right.
be a hard one.
I just don't
Yeah.
know if I can make it through 2 full sets of bluegrass, not physically being in the building.
Yeah.
And then
I-
review to talk about it. I don't know if I'd be able to talk about.
Like, well, this one was extra blue grassy. This one was a little grassy, but not quite as blue.
Right.
I caught some of the Joyride tour for Karina. She fucking
did.
was kicking ass. Yeah, you did too. You caught the night before me or after me, I think,
Yep,
right?
yep.
And she just had a great run of Santa Fe, Denver, and then the Dylan show. So like she's all over the place, man. Like go see her. Go check her out if you can.
Comes a time. Yeah, we were very familiar with those guys. We had them on. They won a Wookiee.
Oh, can I make an announcement?
I don't know. Are you gonna go back on it? Is
No,
it locked
not at
in,
all.
Kev?
I was asked to be on the Guess the Year Grateful Dead podcast to be the guy who picks the songs that they listen to on the podcast.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Are you going to guess the year, or are you going to pick the songs?
No, I'm picking the song. So I pick like a 60-second clip out of a song, and they have to guess what year it's from.
Yeah.
And then the first round, one guy's eliminated. The second round, the second guy's eliminated, and then there's 2 guys left. And
can we steal that idea for an episode, but like do it with like PHiSH or something?
I don't know. I'll ask when I.
Well, you don't have to ask them. I'm asking your opinion. We don't need permission. That's why it's called stealing.
No, you
can't do it on YouTube though, because you play the clip and then you get busted. Although it depends how fast and how short of a clip. That's the challenge. You give 5 seconds of a jam and you have to name it.
Well, yeah, they're giving these people 60 seconds, I think. So.
Oh, really?
60 seconds, but you're naming the year, not the song.
No, they're naming
the year.
Right.
I
can name the year in 60 seconds.
So what I'm thinking is like do a dancing from one year, just part of the jam, because it could be a 76 or it could be 83 kind of thing, you know?
Right. Well, that's what I was thinking. Is there's some songs you can get tripped up with, like between 71 and 73, and then there's like 76, 77, and then the 81.
And into 78, you still, 78 still kind of had 76 vibes, but it had 80 vibes too, you know? It's
I love this idea.
That is great. Yeah, you should throw a J-Rad song in there and see if anybody notices.
Well, J-Rad, I think you could tell right away. I mean, he's entirely different.
But like a Dark Star Orchestra?
I was going to say, like DSO, I wouldn't be you could fucking tell some of those.
Or actually, just do a Dead and Co. Throw some Mayer in there against
Mayer doing estimated with the Mutron. It's people be like 76.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, no, 2023.
I guess since we're talking about the Dead, Tuesday for Wook Club, we're going to be reviewing 22770.
Yes.
So that's going to be fun. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Palate cleanser.
Very little Bobby. I will warn you, I was listening to the dancing, right? And Phil
from that show.
Right, Phil, they don't make the key he sings in. And my kid came down and she was like, really? This is horrible. Turn it off.
Oh.
Maybe next time you suggest a show, you should pre-do it. You know? No, it's good. I like not knowing what we're gonna get.
Right, it's one I've never heard before. I just looked up what days when they had played on that specific date. So
we actually got another request in the comments to do a different PHiSH show. So I was wondering.
Oh, not a PHiSH show.
No, the 7310.
Yeah.
So I was thinking maybe March we could do like a request thing, right? Like let us know what PHiSH show you want us to cover, and then we'll go in April. We'll go back to.
Why don't you put a post here in YouTube, and then whatever show gets the most likes, like people put a date, and then if other people
or we can randomly select it from the suggestions, but at least the pool will come out as suggestions, because I think that 7310 could be interesting.
Right. We've been getting a little flack that there's no 3.0, but I've really been enjoying all the 1.0 shows.
It's been great. I said it the other night, like when we got into this, I felt like I was going to be complaining about it'd be so nice to get some 1.0 in here, and I feel like that's all we've gotten. Like
there's a disproportionate number of 1.0 shows, though. I think just statistically,
obviously, but it's still pretty random that to get back to back, same place, same
year, almost a year apart, which was
a year apart, was crazy.
That was so good to hear the progression in that year. They were a different band, almost
totally different band. Like that year, that was a big gap of like from here to here year of like, wow, they really grew.
I wouldn't mind doing 2.0 though. I think that would be fun.
I would, yeah.
They get a 2.0.
I know that
we got the Vegas show and it was a clunker.
I know, but that's why I'm saying if we do requests, the idea would be that it's a cream. I think we didn't start the channel by this point. I was gonna say, I think where we're gonna draw the line though is
stuff we've already recapped.
Once we've already started, which I think was 19 or no 20.
Right.
It was the end of
20.
19. It was New Year's 19. Once
Yeah.
we started that, I think we're not going to do a Wook Club for it because we could just go back and watch
Right,
the live recap.
Right. We're in our 4th year. At the end of the year, we will hit 5 years, and we're going to have a big party.
Yeah. Are we?
Oh, why
Cool.
not? 5
fuck
years
it.
is huge. 5 years is. What do you get, like paper or something for marriage for 5 years?
Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, we're for us, not marriage, but
I
for
think
us,
1
it's
year
a
is the
big one.
paper.
Yeah, for us, that's big. 5 years. I mean, that's crazy.
Well, with all the volatility and drama in the early days, and like we've gone through some
We had
shit.
a little
a
bit of
lot.
shuffling. We had a little bit of figuring things out. Did you see
Green Rocky Road. It's a
Did
green
you see
Rocky
last
Road.
night? Speaking of Chad posting on that Ruby Waves about Josh Frosh.
Yeah.
Nice.
He was like, he would have
Callback.
enjoyed that one. And I think Father Chris was like, wait, Josh Frosh is
He's like,
dead?
what the fuck? He's dead?
What?
Yeah, Josh Frosh is dead.
Poor Josh.
Sucks
Oh,
that happened.
the continuity of the greater Wook universe. I'm glad that we had all those things and we might revisit it, but I'm also real happy with the way things evolved.
Yeah.
All right.
We had to go through all that. All right. So Tuesday, we'll see you all 10 o'clock.
Kev, I was gonna start the music. I was gonna do some plugs.
Well, I
Gonna,
figured
like,
you were on
work-
it.
I know. I
in
was
your beat.
gonna just set us up to get out of it, and
I
you're
was
just
in
like,
your beat.
"Fuck it, let's go."
Kev's goodbyes are always like that. They're like, we saying that and like, I don't know, to be like, yeah, all right.
I'm
all right,
Irish.
cool, I'll talk to you later.
I'm
That's how
Irish.
he
How
starts.
good did you get?
It's the same way he starts the show. He comes out, he's like, and then at the end, it's like, we're out of here.
Picking
Yeah,
up
I'm
the
gonna go
conversation in the middle
Always
and
be
leaving
closing.
it in the middle.
Have a good Sunday, everybody. Enjoy the end of your weekend.
And we'll see you on
That was
Tuesday.
a fun run.
All right, buddy.